Welcome to Unedited on 247 Sports for my man Smoke Dixon. I am Carl Reed. We're going to go through a series of topics today, and we're going to tell you whether we're going to like it and talk about it or whether we're going to swipe it because we don't think that it's groundbreaking news. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the 247 YouTube channel. Smoke. Man, we're just going to get right into it off the top. The Athletic did an interview with former Colorado player Xavier Smith, who said, I was actually getting mad, like tears were coming to my eyes because, bro, you never even tried to get to know me. He was destroying guys' confidence and belief in themselves the way he did it. It could have been done with a little more compassion. To that, Shedeur Sanders, Coach Sanders' son, and the Colorado quarterback says, I don't even remember him, to be honest. Bro had to be very mid at best. Smoke, give me your take on this.
Man, I like this right here, Carl. I'm going to touch on it for you. Real simple. My old man used to tell me, apple trees produce apples. You remember back in the season when Coach Novell got at Prime a little bit about wearing his glasses, having his hat on, and about respect, and alluded to how he was raised? What did Coach tell you? You just made this personal. And I understand exactly what the family is. That's the same way that I raised my kids. Protect the family name first, last, and always. And all Shedeur is doing is protecting dad's name. So when you look at it, it's like this. Every time that you get a comment or somebody says something about you, Shedeur, it's not worth your time because you're elevating them. Like you said, your teammate was mid. There's no reason to say somebody's mid. Just move on from it. Elevate yourself from it. For the end of the day, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get drafted in the NFL. You're going to be doing handshakes with the commissioner, chest bump. You might as well be a potential franchise quarterback. And when you're a potential franchise quarterback, there's no reason to get into the lower tier argument. You get into the big tier because what you want to see is big picture. And when you're not seeing picture, all your concentration and everything that you're doing is on something else. So I would always tell people, if at the end of the day, if somebody's saying something that you don't like or you don't agree with and they're not worth your conversation, tell them to get in the goofy line. Tell them to move on. I get it. I like this conversation. I like that he's representing his family. But at some point, Carl, you got to leave this one alone and let it be.
Smoke, I've been back and forth over this. I've got a chance to talk to Coach Prime this week as well. I'm going to be honest with you. In dealing with recruiting the way that I've done in the past, there's no easy way to tell a player that you don't think he's good enough and that it's time to move in from the program. You can interview guys from a number of different schools, whether it be Alabama, whether it be Georgia, whether it be Ohio State, whether it be Notre Dame, guys that are getting asked to move on because they're not going to play. And when you sit down with a player in that situation, there's no easy way for you to say, hey, we don't have plans for you here. We don't have a future for you here at our university. Shedeur is doing what any person would do in that situation. A lot of guys, when you talk about something, you have to remember that's just not his coach. That's his dad. And he has to get on the internet and watch day after day after day of people attacking his father. And he typically hasn't responded to anybody that does it that's an adult. But he looked at a former player as one of his peers, and he stepped in and did what guys do to defend their dads. When I think about what has went on at Colorado and the way that it's been covered and how upset people get, especially when you talk about Shedeur, Shiloh, and even Deion Jr. and the presence that he has on social media, on the internet, you have to know this, Smoke. People in general, they hate rich kids. They hate kids that come from means and that people feel like their parents have positioned them. We went through this last year when we rated Arch Manning #1. And although Arch doesn't do any social media and you hardly hear the man is on social media, we were bombarded with hate because everybody said he was #1 only because his last name was Manning. And we just saw what he did in the spring game at Texas. You got to think about all of the hate that anybody who says or even suggests that Bronny James can play in the NBA, everybody hates it. They hate to deal with it. The people that are at home watching this show right now, they hate somebody that comes from a wealthy family that they feel like has been positioned over them unfairly because they have something that they don't. They feel like they're more talented. They feel like they're better. So just by human nature, that's what he did. Coach Prime did not directly say anything derogatory about the kid. He did retweet Lord Jesus comparing to what somebody else had tweeted, but he never made a comment directly about the kid. He's been under scrutiny because of the transfer portal. People hate the way that he's running the transfer portal, but I'm going to tell you what, I've seen the team in every phase since he's been there. Every move that they have made in the transfer portal, whether it's addition or subtraction, their roster has gotten significantly better. And people think, well, recruits aren't going to want to come there. I can't tell. It seems like they're getting the commitment smoke every day that I look up online. Somebody is committing. And people don't realize how many kids and how many parents call trying to go up there and visit. They made a big deal because they say he wasn't going on in-home visits in people's houses. I don't think people look at that from a realistic standpoint. If you've been anywhere with Prime, and I have, you have to understand that he's not normal. He's not a normal coach. If I took him right now with me anywhere in the country and I put out a tweet and said, Coach Prime is here, and this is where we at, within 5 minutes, it will be thousands of people surrounding him. Traffic would be stopped up the interstate. He is not just a former NFL player that made it to the Hall of Fame. There's lots of guys that are in the Hall of Fame that can walk through the mall and people don't notice him. He is a cultural phenomenon. He is an icon. No matter where you go, he couldn't walk through the mall. He can't walk through stores. That's just who he is. He has the same kind of cachet as Michael Jordan, as a Beyonce, as a Jay-Z, as guys like Prince when they come. So him going in the neighborhoods and going and visiting people's house, you just can't compare it. It's not the same thing. Years ago when Isaiah Thomas was the basketball coach at FIU, I was with him in Orange Mound in Memphis, Tennessee, outside of Memphis Melrose. And as soon as people found out that the great Isaiah Thomas was there, you could have closed the school down. Those guys are in different situations when it comes to recruiting smoke. And so Prime is going to get covered. Everything is going to be over-exaggerated, but the world didn't end and everybody will be back Monday.
I'm with it.
Smoke, another guy who made big headlines this week, former Florida State wide receiver, Keon Coleman, second-round draft pick of the Buffalo Bills, was on the RG3 podcast this week, and here's what he had to say.
I got to ask this because some people said, oh, well, y'all were going to play Georgia, and that's why the guys opted out. What would you say to people who tried to question y'all's toughness and y'all's want to play a team like Georgia?
How many players we had drafted? 10, 11?
Yep.
We're going to see who the better come out in the NFL. It's the only way you can tell. Of course, they want to play. They playing in the maddest HELL Bowl. They mad, but they lost. What y'all mad
Right.
because y'all lost? Y'all think this 2021, y'all supposed to just get in because y'all Georgia? It don't work like that. You would have won. You would have found out who was better between Florida State and Georgia. You would have played us in the Matter Bowl, the bowl that matter. We ain't going to play y'all in the bowl that don't matter. That's a waste of time. But y'all would have won and did what y'all supposed to do. Y'all would have had to see us.
Right.
Would have been not doing this the whole time. All that barking would have put a spear straight through you, Kai. Ain't no barking. That's dead. They'd have found out, but the world may never know because Georgia decided to lose.
That's true.
We should question their toughness to Bama. How y'all keep choking?
Smoke, I'm going to tell you what. I actually like this. One of the biggest debates for the college football season was, did the right teams get picked for the playoffs? Florida State, undefeated, was left out, we know, for the University of Alabama, your alma mater, the Crimson Tide. And then Georgia and Florida State turn around and play in the bowl game, and Georgia beats the doors off of Florida State. Now, all Florida State's top guys didn't play. Obviously, the quarterback was hurt. Coleman didn't play. Verse didn't play. They were basically left out there with a bunch of young guys and a scout team, Michelle of itself. But you know how old guys are that play football. This is something they're going to probably talk about the rest of their lives. How do you feel about what Keon Coleman and his comments? Because you also a former Buffalo Bill. and you worked in the front office with the Bills. Keon's been making a lot of headlines. How do you feel about what he said?
Well, listen, the first pick in the second round, Keon Coleman. He's done an outstanding job just being in front of the camera. But this is one that I'm a swipe. There's nothing that I want to do with this one. If it was a few months ago when it's hot topic, I would have liked it a little bit, Coach. But no. Awesome job sitting down, trying to tell the story and articulate what happened. But at the end of the day, Georgia didn't have their top players either. All Kirby did was go out there, get his team properly prepared with the players that he had out there. Go out there and put a 60 burger on you. Now, I've been a part of games, but I've never got 60. But, Coach, there's games that you get, and what do? You flush the bad one. This is one that you just flush. You don't talk about it. You don't mention it. It's just like Men in Black. You get that pen and just zap, and hopefully you just forget. But at the end of the day, I lost a lot of respect for the Florida State Seminoles for putting on this action because it comes from top down. Just lost some respect for that one, man. So I'm going to swipe this.
Smoke, the NCAA in the house are back in it again, questioning and fighting over the amateurism model. And we're getting to the point now where we got to decide, Smoke, what is an amateur? What is not an amateur? College football is going somewhere where it's never been before. Do you like this or like swipe this, Smoke? Where are we at with amateurism in college football?
Carl, I like this one right here. But we all understand that amateurism stuff, it's been over for 30 years, man. It's pay for play, and it's been that way. The only thing that I would tell these young players is to understand this. You're in the best time right now to monetize your value and your skill set. You can be a freshman and don't even play for the entire year, and whatever that NIL agreement is that you had, they're going to cash you out. The second that you want to get into the space of being an employee, now you're going to be getting dictated of when, how much they can pay you, and when they can pay you. Thus meaning that there might be a game or two at the end of the season where you know that you're going in the first or second round that you want to opt out because this game don't mean nothing. But when you're an employee, they're going to say you have to play. So get all the money that you possibly can get, Carl, right now. It's just like when we was in the league, NFL, we always complained about us having a cap. But baseball, basketball, capless. And when we saw those contracts, we're like, come on. But we agreed to have a union, to have a cap, to see our league grow. And this is what these players are doing. Good players aren't complaining. The bad players want a bag. And if you can't play, you're not having any production, just get a great education and move on. And leave it up to the real good players to keep cashing out.
With Smoke, what I would say to the players right now is similar to what you said. You don't want an employee structure. You want to keep this exactly like it is for as long as you can. People are overpaying a lot of you. As long as collectives have the money to keep paying you, you do not want to go to this model. You don't want your money capped. You do not want to be in a situation where people are telling you how much money you can make. Right now, the possibilities for you are endless if you're a great player. Now, that those guys at the bottom of the totem pole, they're going to want this because they might get a little more. But you top guys, you want to get as much as you can, as fast as you can, for as long as you can. You want to definitely keep this model. Smoke, as we go to the next topic, one of the best players in this portal window for the transfer portal, former TCU defensive lineman Dominic Wilkins has committed to the University of Oklahoma. He goes, where do I start? This entire process has been a whirlwind. Sooner Nation, I want you to know at the end of the day, I chose you because of relationships with Coach V, Coach Bates, and staff. They were genuine, and I believe their ability to develop me as a man and a player and prepare me for the next level. I can't wait to get to work with my teammates. You will get my best version and my best effort. I am blue collar, and I love to compete at the highest level. God bless and Boomer Sooner. Smoke, what do you think about the young fella?
Man, I love this young man. Went back and watched him. Here's a couple of things that I know about him. Stout at line of scrimmage. Cat-like instincts in terms of quickness. Can get off the ball. Now, he's limited a little bit in terms of his length because he was playing out of position to me at TCU, where they run that odd front, and he was lined up in 4-eye. That's directly over the offensive tackle. And you saw that he was limited in his ability with range and also quickness in terms of bending and getting the edge. But now that he's going to Oklahoma, he's going to be down in a 4-down man front, where he's now can be the 3 technique, lined up over the guard. So you can see his quickness, his ability to disrupt, his ability to be stout. And he actually is going to get those double teams, but he's going to be in a confined space where he can now use his quickness and his explosiveness, and you don't have to see that limited length that he has. Now, last and for the most important part, he's going over there with my brother, Todd Bates, which I believe is one of the better developers of the defensive linemen in college football. And you see that in the paychecks that 2 of his babies have got. Dexter Lawrence cashed out 2 years ago. Kristen Wilkins, which Mr. Williams reminds me a little bit of him, right? He's not as long, but that cat-like quickness, the ability to get in the tight space, contort his body, get skinny, scoot, power, lift, and get to the quarterback. I don't think anybody would have put him in a better situation than him choosing to go to this place, Oklahoma, 4 down, Brent Venables, a tactile defense, getting a guy that's going to develop him and get him going to the next level. He got some pro in him.
Now, Smoke, you said something, and I don't know if people caught what you said. At TCU, out of position, playing 4-eye. For people who don't know what a 4-eye is, in the 3 down front, it's the guy that plays directly over the tackle, getting the opportunity now to play a more natural 3 technique. Now, one of the guys who has a great relationship with this kid, Cordell Landers, talked about the need for him to play the 3 technique because that's going to be his position that he plays in the National Football League. And when you got a guy who can rush the passer and stop the run in a 40 front, whether you're playing over cover 4 or whether you're playing under cover 2, whatever, or any of the variations of the over and under front from the 3 technique, everybody wants a kid like that. This kid had LSU, he had Texas, he had the University of Missouri. Everybody wanted this kid out of the transfer portal, and he is a big-time player. You mentioned it, getting an opportunity to play for Todd Bates, who has done nothing but produce pros his entire time as a college football coach. Now, something also that I don't think people are paying attention to when you talk about the haves and have-nots in the NIL era, didn't TCU just play for a national championship 2 seasons ago? And people are treating them like they're not a top-tier program. This is one of the top programs in the nation if you have to go by the fact that you did make it to a national championship game. So I'm going to be interested to see, how the transfer portal continues to evolve. But this is a very, very, very special football player who can do a lot of things. I'm excited to see what he gets to do as a 3 technique. Smoke, speaking of 3 techniques and speaking of college football players, one of the last things we're going to touch on today is the NFL draft. And so we were talking throughout the draft over the weekend. Both of us were getting calls from different kids, agents, and scouts. One thing that I'm not understanding, in the NIL era, where colleges are paying these guys the money that they're paying them and they're getting to go wherever they want to go, if you're an underclassman with eligibility left on the table and you're a day 3 pick, why would you declare for the NFL draft? And I talk to so many players about this every year when we get to draft time. And they say, well, my agent says I'm going to go in the first round. My agent says I'm going to be a first or second round pick. Guys need to really educate themselves on that process. You looking at mock drafts, you talking to agents, you need to pay attention to what the NFL Draft Advisory Committee gave you as a draftable grade. Because once they give you that grade, it's very, very difficult for you to move up from that positioning. They see you as a day 3 guy. You need to understand that you're a day 3 guy. And Smoke, in my opinion, with the way that NIL is getting paid out, there is absolutely no reason for a guy with college eligibility left to be going on day 3 of the NFL draft. What are your thoughts?
Well, Carl, you can go both ways with this, right? There are different ways to spin this. And what you alluded to was the advisory committee. And what happens at the end of the year is when a player feels like they are draftable, and they have a draftable grade, they turn their names into the advisory committee. The advisory committee, if nobody knows, it's a few scouts from a few teams that go in, they give you an evaluation, and they project you where they believe you should go. Now, my rule of thumb is this: day 1, day 2, day 3, meaning those day 3 guys, contracts aren't guaranteed, but if you're around 1 through 3, get out of there and leave. Now, if you can run fast, jump high, and test out of this world, that's going to push you up more. But when you start getting to round 4 through 7, a lot of things can happen. I would always tell a young man, go back, go to your collective, renegotiate that contract that you want, because nothing is guaranteed. Now, I got a story for you, Carl. Back in 2016, I had the opportunity to work for the Buffalo Bills. And this is before they implemented the P5 being guaranteed to you in your contract, which meaning that your base salary is a part of your signing contract and it's fully guaranteed to you. That's the thing that these young people also got to look at. So the story goes, Mike Pierce, he was at Sanford, real good defensive lineman, 6'3", he plays for Baltimore, he's about 6'2" and a half, 300 pounds, but he was a linebacker in high school. So he had feet, quickness, range, could run. So my friend and I, Jim Monis was the assistant general manager at that time, Doug Whaley. So we go down there to work him out. Thought I had a steal. Go to draft day, we bring him up on our 30 visit. Everything's going great. Draft day comes around, we don't draft him. I put in that call, and I'm recruiting my tail off. I'm throwing everything at him. Going back to the general manager, how much can I give him? I can give him 25 grand. How much can I give him? I can give him 30 grand. But at the end of the day, what the Baltimore Ravens did, well, they started implementing the P5 in their base contract, in their salary. And they guaranteed him basically his first year contract, well, we were only guaranteeing him $25,000. So that's something that these young people also got to look at. If you believe it's time for you to be a pro and you're getting guaranteed up to $300,000 to $400,000, yeah, you might not want to go back to school. But if you can get a $300,000 deal within your NIL, my man, stay back at school. But like I said, to wrap it up, round 1, 2, 3, leave. 4 through 7, come back home and renegotiate and put yourself in the best situation.
Smoke, we're going to take a couple questions from our viewers today. And this first question we're going to take is from Carson Caleb Vibes. And this is interesting because you did work in the NFL front office. You were a GM of an XFL team. And you also have been a GM for a Big Ten football team. If you are an NFL GM, do you want your franchise quarterback tweeting at less talented dudes? No. And before you answer this, I'm going to add a back end to this because everybody obviously went here about Shador when he made his tweet. But it was also reported that Johnny Manziel draft stock was sliding because he did a Netflix special in high school. Something else that I didn't believe. What are your takes on what these guys are doing on social media or maybe on TV as it relates to their draft value when you're in the room with the GMs and the scouts evaluating guys for the draft?
I agree with Carson. I wouldn't want my franchise player to be taking jabs at anybody. I've never seen a cool quarterback. I was just talking to this with one of my buddy Jim Monis the other day. I've never seen a cool quarterback. And when I mean a cool quarterback, I mean I've been around guys that were really talented and franchise guys that didn't have a life. Their life was predicated to playing football, watching film, playing football, and getting their team to the best situation. So if you're having time to tweet out conversations or retweeting or commenting back on what somebody said, you aren't doing what you're supposed to do. And I go back to last year when Prime got Deion Sanders got Tom Brady with Shador. And he flat out told Shador, stop riding around in your luxury cars, spending time outside of the office, get into your playbook and get yourself to a better situation of playing football. Go study. So if you're having time to tweet, you're not having time to get yourself better as a football player, especially if you're a franchise quarterback.
So let me ask you this though, Smoke. You said a lot, but you didn't answer the question. Does it affect their draft status? You might not like it, but does it change where you draft them?
Absolutely. Because if you can't focus on the task at hand, then you can't focus on the franchise that we want you to take this thing off and go win a Super Bowl for us. So yes, I believe it does.
Next question, Johnny Johnson. Can you discuss the Ducks beating out Colorado for Harmon, the defensive tackle for Michigan State? Harmon, a great player. Everybody, another kid along the lines of Dominic Martin, who we talked about earlier. He's a guy that everybody in the country wanted. Tosh Lapoy, the job that he does developing defensive linemen, he's as good as anybody out there. Dan Lanning, an excellent defensive coach. It's a good fit for Harmon.
Carl, you know what? I'm gonna touch on this a little bit because I think I'm gonna defend you and I'm gonna defend Colorado a little bit. They get so much slack when they lose a player, but didn't Colorado? They're not even a top 25 team. They only won 4 games. Oregon is a top 5 program right now in college football. So if Colorado is in the last position of getting a player, in the close position of getting a player, that's a win for Colorado. Oregon should be beating them on talent. They should be beating them on the better players. At the end of the day, the reason why Colorado is where they're at, and you said it a while back, is because of Coach Prime. He's a megastar.
You know, Smoke. They're going to come for him. I support them. They're going to come for me. But everybody keep receipts. So we'll see what happens during the football season. Guys, we're going to get out of here. Continue to watch us. We'll be on every Friday at 4 o'clock. Like, share, subscribe our YouTube channel. You can also hit me or Smoke on social media and our DMs if there's topics and things you'd like us to talk about on the show. See you next time.